Hi,
Tzili.
Tzip. Hi,
Hi.
everybody. Hi,
We have a
Dita
fantastic guest.
Roman. Dita Roman. Maybe you present yourself so I won't make mistakes, beside the fact that you're my friend.
Let's put things straight. My name is Dita Kohl Roman.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Kohl belongs to my father, and it's
Wow.
Kohl. And Roman is what I'm trying to have for the
It's not
last
Itzy
almost
Kohl,
40
right?
years with
No.
my husband. What?
No.
Okay. No, I got my answer.
Well, anyway, how to present myself. And I'm one of the natives. I was born in Israel.
Oh,
Wonderful.
yeah, too. Square Disney.
One of them, and they teach us English. And I was born and raised in the Jezreel Valley in a place called Tivon.
Oy,
And you can never take it out of me.
my
Okay?
Israel cannot take it out of me.
Okay, great.
Square Dizengoff and Emek Israel, whatever you say, that's my heart. Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, so you will understand a lot of things.
Yes.
I'm a publisher of a magazine, actually a few magazines and books that, looking back, I understand why I had to publish them. One is called Eretz Magazine. At the age of 26, I have absolutely had to go out to the world and tell the world that Israel is one big story above and beyond politics, that it has archaeology, that it has nature, that it has history, that it has people. And the other one later on is Metropolis, which is probably a reflection of my mother's not exactly accepting the fact that her princess daughter is not in the Habsburg castle. And therefore, I launched Metropolis, which is a magazine about cities around the world. So I'm a publisher of that. But basically what stands behind it is the love for stories. And the story that I'm involved in right now is a story which I think is one of the most relevant stories in Israel today. And as you understand, for someone who was brought up in the Jezreel Valley, Israel and the land of Israel, and you can call it whatever you want, Zionism, post-Zionism, whatever, it's fine. It's deep in my veins. And I am currently working with a nonprofit organization that is taking care in very creative ways of at-risk youth from the religious circles in Israel.
Of what?
Risk at youth, youngsters, young men and women who are at risk.
What risk? Okay.
At risk, yes. Who are finding themselves, not finding themselves, going out of home,
Getting out
synagogue.
of the circles of the orthodoxy to...
So it's specific to born again, whatever Jew. I mean, no, they didn't.
No. On the contrary.
Wait. They stay religious?
That's a different... the organization, which is called Timora, does not have any religious agenda.
Okay.
The agenda is the people, the young people. The agenda is the identity and the will to allow and to help these young people, adolescents, who they might leave their homes, synagogues, yeshivas, and social circles because they are individualists. They're very smart. They don't like the frame of the synagogue. They had a trauma.
Wait. We need to explain a little bit because I don't know that many people understand what we're talking about. There are the very orthodox circles in Israel and also outside of Israel with very tough rules. Some of the youngsters that belong to these communities don't want to continue with this kind of life from very different reasons, and they would like to cross the lines. It doesn't mean that they don't want to be Jewish. It doesn't mean they don't want to be Orthodox. They just cannot live their life the way the community demands from them. And they have very tough problem to cross the line because they're being thrown out or being forced to do certain things. They have tough time, and they never lived in an outside environment whatever level it is. So this organization now helps them to cross the lines.
I still didn't get an
basically
answer. From what you explained, I didn't get an answer. Are they still religious by themselves in their heart? Do they observe? Do they do all the?
The answer is that I do not have an answer, and the reason is that first of all, I'll give just very, very short explanation. We're talking today about around 400 young men and young women. Some of them are simply confused. And the confusion, as Tzili said, meets very rigid rules of their society. Some of them had traumas. Some of them are already with drugs, alcohol in the streets. So the variety is very big.
And they're left alone because
sometimes they just go out to the streets, and sometimes they come to us because of judicial levels, and sometimes it's social workers, sometimes it's the parents. Things are also changing. But regarding your question, Tzipi, I'll give you a little nice story. One of our dormitories, we have actually 5 overnight dormitories together with high schools, okay? And one is a day school. In one of them, the rabbi, the young man, the young rabbi, took me around and showed me the synagogue. And he said, "Do you see this synagogue? This is the place where our young men can sit outside and say, my foot will never be inside." And he said, that is for me a very important role of the synagogue. Then what happens? What happens is that you have young men who say, I'm not religious, and they wear a kippah. Others who do not wear a kippah and call themselves religious. So the variety, basically what it shows you is that we want our graduate to be back with him or herself. The definition is up to him or herself. There's no doubt that a part of that is allowing him or her to get back to their families. If the family was not the source.
Yeah.
No, and if the family wasn't the source of the trauma, let's say, of the problem. But we're working a lot with the families, with the rabbis, with the community.
And the family cooperate with you?
Absolutely. What happened when this nonprofit was started 22 years ago, it started with a young man called Ariel Sokolov. He was a student in the Hebrew University and then in the yeshiva in Ma'ale Adumim, and he was asked to take care of 10 young men, just so they won't wander around the streets. From that, he went to the States and he said, listen, we need to take care of it more seriously. His community, which was what you both know and I know, I don't know if the viewers know, it was the old Mafdal, okay? Very moderate.
Conservative.
Yes. Yeah, no, not just that. Ariel says that their basic philosophy is pshara.
Right.
Okay.
They were middle. They were in the middle.
Some there were called today are very left, very right. It really scattered around politically, but I'm not getting there. Basically, and when he started to observe it, the community blamed him because they said, you're creating a problem. We, the religious families, we have a problem. We don't have a problem. We have very warm families. We have a community in the synagogue. We don't have these problems that the Chilonis, the secular Jews.
No.
And in the last 22 years, a very big, slow, but very, very consistent process has taken place. Today, it's the families who come to us and say, listen, we need to look at our youngsters and see what fits them.
These are the good cases that the family is aware and coming to you.
You're right. But that's when I look at the process, that is happening. It takes time, but that is happening. At the same time, he started with what I called the mafdal. Slowly, and they were middle class and upper class, kids of judges and the professors in the university, very respected people. A big group came from the settlements. Americans who came with this revolutionary spirit, and their revolutionary spirit was, let's go up to Judea and Samaria and settle it. And their kids and their grandkids, and now we have to remember that we're talking about the 4th generation.
Wow.
Over there, okay? So I'm talking about a reality now. The reality now, and someone from the States who is not really familiar, you know, there's religious, each one is taking it to a different place. And we know that an ultra-Orthodox from Beit Aaron in Mea Shearim is not exactly my Jewish definition. I mean, and I am Jewish, and he or she are Jewish. So it has so many subgroups, and so do we. When you look at young people who are at risk, I think that's a big risk for the state.
Up to what age you're dealing with?
We're today taking care of 14, 15 to 18, and then they go to either the army or the national service.
Because, you know, when it comes to older guys, they don't always want to go back to the community or to the family, but they're older and they have to leave even their spouses and their kids, and they are not allowed to see them, and they have to find their way outside. So it's very different when you talk about 15 to 18, because they're still kids and they need to go.
And you can still do some very, very meaningful work. You're talking about a very fragile age where hormones are playing, we all know that. And if you add to that, I don't know, a financial trauma or a gender issue that one is going through, or a divorce of the parents, not to mention, then it's not just you and the problem, it's you and the problem. And that makes it much tougher, because the synagogue will look at your family, and now you also bear guilt, because you say, okay, it's not my problem. Now I'm creating a problem to my family. My sister is not going to find the shidduch, and it becomes much heavier.
Yes.
So when you talk about youth,
something deeper, how you deal with them, because I had a feeling that when they walk out, they were internalized fear from God to be punished if they walk away from the mitzvot and religious. How they deal with the fear of God?
Well, I think it's a very deep philosophical, psychological question, and I think you're absolutely. I think you're touching the core, and I think that core is why Timora exists, because there are beautiful organizations, very meaningful organizations in Israel that deal with youth at risk.
Yes.
All kinds of young people.
Yeah, right.
The philosophy of Timora says that there is that unique question, and you need to understand the language. Yes. Because that person was raised on that language. And if you really want to penetrate and have a dialogue and open that person to lower the fears, to be able to hold him or herself, then you have to understand that. You have to empathize with it.
Yes. But it's not only that, you know, it's such a complexity of fear of God, guilt of what they did to their parents, and what you say to the sisters who cannot find match, you know, they cannot find the
family.
Not only that, the fear that they'll get punished.
Yeah, of course, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm emphasizing. Yes. Punished by God, by the way.
Yes.
Which is the most amazing, you know, fear. And, you know, and they did love God for some, you know, at least.
Yes, but you see, the rabbi shows them the synagogue, and he says, it's okay not to step inside.
You're talking about very unusual Orthodox group that is
I don't think so. Now let's talk about
every religious person, conservative.
No, what I'm saying, that the rabbis that you're working with, they're very open-minded and very aware and very welcoming. Not all rabbis are like that.
Right, but a lot of them are coming from Orthodox.
There's no doubt, as you understand.
Orthodox, but that's why I'm saying it's not a typical Orthodox rabbi.
Right.
But do you also have professionals that help them that are not Orthodox, that work
it's very good that you're leading us ahead, because it's not just the rabbis. I mean, we're talking first and foremost, the Timora developed a dynamic way in education, a dynamic model that says education is the heart and it has to go with therapy and with the arts. And it does not see education. Ariel's belief is that it's not just for youth at risk, for youngsters who are at risk. And I think you will agree with me.
Yes, I do.
Basically, I mean, look at, we're talking about adolescence. We know what adolescence means, and we know that it's fragile, and we know that if we want to go through this stage the best way, we should address it in the right way with the right tools. So that's why we have all over studying of allowing the students to deal with arts, to deal with music. We see that those two as very, very important tools of self-expression, together with the baccalaureate, together with math and English and everything. That is why we have in some of the frames, we have animals and gardening.
So how specifically you deal with the fear of God?
Well, first,
how can you do?
First of all, yes, if for you it's art, but of course there's also therapy. The therapy, for example, there's a private session for each one on a regular basis, and there's group sessions, and all the counselors are working together with the therapists and the students and their parents on a continuous basis. There's this whole program that looks at these young people and from the basis of therapy. But it's very important for me to address what Tzili said before on the fact that it's not typical. I'm afraid we are all consuming too much of definitions that are really holding us back from one group from the other in Israel. And you know, I'm not naive. I really think it's very difficult to connect the different groups. But as someone who grew up in the north, in the Jezreel Valley, and was a part of, on one hand, second generation Holocaust, and on the other hand, going to the Arab villages and learning how to drive by an Arab Israeli, I see how it is all the same, how each group is being defined especially by the media in Israel and by the politicians, and creates, you see, I'm in Givatayim and I'm going to Iftach, and it's one of our, the basic place is in the northern part of the Dead Sea. Ovnat is the community, and Iftach is the overnight place. And I'm just, it's mind-boggling to listen to those and to listen to these. See, my husband calls me mitnachelet, a settler. A settler, because I work with the religious. And it's amazing because these guys are just the guys I grew up with in Nahalal, Far Yoshua, Bet Lechem Aglilit, Tivon. Just the same.
All in the same area, right?
Yeah, no, it's same like philosophy. The same culture. Thing of let's do things.
What is the core of the philosophy? It's a very general term, philosophy. I'm sorry to be a nudge, but today there is tools to deal with different kind of phobias or fears. Psychologists can today actually treat, phobias, fear of. I'm just interested, what they use in order to dissolve the fear of God. But I can go after, because you just opened my eyes, right? So that's really wonderful to meet you.
First of all, I must say,
now I'm going to research it because I'm really interested. How do you dissolve the fear?
It's very intriguing, and it's going to be raised today in my meeting with Ariel, because I'm sure he's going to give a very interesting. I never touched it, and I really think you're touching a core, very, very interesting question. Because I'm not sure there's one answer for that. I'm not sure there's one answer for that, because
there
the
must
fear
be a
of
way
God,
to diffuse it.
the
Otherwise,
fear of
you say it's a process. You're
But
right.
it's
But
a
what is a
process.
process?
But I think also, you know, but by the details of the program, it seems to me that those kids face these subjects for the first time. They never touch all of it in their programs. So they come outside of their community. They face you guys who introduce them to so many fields that they have no idea, and you know,
and they're becoming friendly with them.
that's right.
And
So
they're
slowly, and then they ask more questions. So I'm sure that for some it shakes them, and for some it gives them comfort. So, but that's why they have therapy people, and they have rabbis, and to help them to navigate.
And the interesting phenomena, I just recently spoke to Ariel, and he told me, you know, he said, I now realize I start to get calls from our graduates. We have more than 300 graduates. And he said, they're now entering the 40 crisis. Wow. I didn't think about it, and I didn't think of tools to allow them to cross that. And it was so beautiful because
they're reevaluating their life at that point.
It's an ongoing process, just like you and I and Tzili are having. It's an ongoing process, and each one from their starting point. Now, if you acknowledge the fact that the starting point is a home that says we have a certain belief, we have a certain home, it's called a synagogue, we have certain actions that we fulfill, and within this we live, but, and that is where it's very important. I think that's where I connect. Ariel talks about a bridge between the young man and himself, his fears, his family, his aspirations.
Sure.
You know, let's talk about the Hilltop youth, Noar HaGvaot.
Right.
Let me give you a little scenario. I'm sitting at the management, we had a meeting, and we just took upon ourselves 160 Hilltop youth, and we have to take care of them. And we have to design the question, do we need an overnight? Do we want a day school? Now, you should have listened to my colleagues. You know, it's these guys with the long hairs and the big...
Not necessarily.
No, I know, but it was so funny to hear the religious management talk about a religious different group and the way they don't see themselves completely as a part. Now, when you talk about Hilltop Youth, Ariel says to me, listen, there's a group there of vegans.
Sure.
They are simply vegans. They want to be ro'etzon, a shepherd. And that they don't want to hear about anything about any kind of governing. Let them go. And on one hand, then there's a group of ideologists.
Yes.
They're the soldiers for Ben Gvir, etc. For any charismatic figure who will come and locate them on a hill because they want, and will tell them how they can rebuild the temple or whatever, okay? By the way, the same kind of charisma can also take them to a wonderful, quick solution in crime.
Yes.
Now, what's the difference between that and the Arab community? I don't see any difference, by the way. I don't see any difference. You have the problem, the age, I would say the vulnerability of that age. Then you have the social agents who and all I feel is that we need to be the social agents. We need to take responsibility, because if you ask, I think it's so dangerous for our society if we just let it go.
Yes.
And I was very glad to hear a major general in the army about a year ago who spoke with the leaders of the settlers. He was Aluf Pikud Merkaz, the head of the central unit. And he said, listen, you know, we have to go and take out the fire here or there before everything explodes in the Middle East. He said, this is not the way. We have to deal with education. This is not the way. If it gets already to the Shabak, to our secret services, or to the police, we missed something
But
very,
Dita,
very
it's not only between the Jews and the Arabs, it's between the Jews and the Jews, because they
Yeah.
have no problem to hurt
That's what
soldiers
you
who
said
protect
before.
them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You lose the boundaries.
Yeah.
You lose the boundaries. The right and wrong.
But it's getting worse and worse every day now. You know, it's like in the beginning when we started this show, Tzipi and I said, we're not touching the news, we're not touching politics, we're not competing with anything. And it took over. And you cannot avoid it because these
cannot
days,
avoid it.
you wake every morning, you wake up to another country. And slowly, it's being taken away from us. And
No, here is the language. Listen to the words that you're picking. I'm very sensitive to that. I think everything you said in the core, I completely agree with it. There is a very dangerous, risky situation, and that can take us downhill. I think that
it's
we
taking
cannot
place already.
Yeah, there are definitely signs. I know that, you know, fear is a wonderful tool for those who want power.
The most powerful one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I am more I'll give you an example for the corona. When the corona erupted and then the vaccines came, I basically looked and said, okay, there's a group that is more afraid of the corona, and there's a group that is more afraid of the vaccine. And I respect this fear and that fear. But I could hear the voices who think immediately, that is because of the vaccine. That is because of the corona. You know, it's okay. This one is afraid because democracy is going to be taken away. That one is afraid because Judaism and the Jewish identity is going to be taken away. Mm-hmm. That's what I see. I know that I want a Jewish identity, but I'm not willing to sacrifice democracy. Now, what happens when you take the titles and you go a little bit deeper and you try to cut it into actions, specifics, okay? Because at the end of the day, everything is in the detail, both God and the devil. So I think that for me, and I say that to every person I talk to, including politicians, and you know, I know some high-level politicians, I've had enough of talking about these things. I think each person, but each one has more than 10 options a day to act upon the values that he or she want to protect, okay? We have a few synagogues in a place called Givatayim, that's where I live. At the end of the street, there's a butcher. It's a new boutique butchery, beautiful, and it's open in Shabbat.
Got finished.
So I said to myself, okay, if I want to continue living in the way which is good for me, I have to support all the elements in my neighborhood. If I see something that is wrong in my neighborhood, I have to go and do something in my neighborhood. It's not enough to go to Kikar Rabin. And I'm afraid that those friends of mine who are so afraid from losing the democracy, they went to one demonstration in Shabbat and then they moved to the other one. And then they saw that Ayman Udeh was there.
They didn't know it. They were
that was too much for them.
It was a stolen demonstration. I went there.
But that's a part of democracy.
Against the kibush, against the occupation, that's fine. We cannot get there before we saw, you know, what the demonstration was talking about.
I don't know. Balagan is a part of democracy.
Listen, I want to tell you something. I made a film in the West Bank, okay? In a very extreme settlement, Kochav Yaakov. One of the sons of one of the families I did the film on, he raised snakes, okay? He teaches and coaches baseball, right? He played the guitar. He looks like a Texas boy when he speaks and sings. He participating in Tag Mechir, which is, you know, punish the Palestinian every time they do something. We go back and we pay them back. I spent there months and months, right? Different families, different Jews, is what you say, hill boys. That is something else. This is, what do you mean by democracy? Who cares? There is a rabbi, there is religion, there is, who cares about democracy? And between you and me, I think 60% of the Israelis don't care about democracy. This is not the issue. And listen, how many are becoming religious now?
But I think they become traditional. When you talk about a Jewish and democratic state, it's an illusion not to think that there will be all the time clashes between the two.
If I'm wrong, tell me, but I think the Bible teaches you to respect the ger.
But there's something else.
The
by the definition of a Jewish state, it doesn't come close to a democracy.
But it's possible. Talk with Aaron Baraki, will tell you it's possible.
It is possible, but
it is possible when you come with an open mind, but not when you need to follow the rules of the Orthodox.
As I started, if you go
therefore, I don't know what you can do with education. What you do with the ultra-religious or the religious people who believe?
I think, Tzipi, it's
what the rabbi says.
Education is something deeper and bigger than a rabbi and a teacher and Misrad HaChinuk. Education is a process of allowing a person to think, giving the information as
Dita, you're
not allowed.
But Dita, you don't. There's something very basic. You need to be secure in yourself. You need to be secure in your power as a
That's the point.
You need to be open-minded and safe enough.
And what can that be based on?
Hold on. But the most of the Orthodox community, and not even the secular community, people are afraid, people don't think, people like to follow.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Western society teach them how to follow in different ways because they want to lead them towards other things. Watch to most of the talk shows in the United States. The audience is waiting for you to tell them what to do. It's human. It's very human. Most people and some people take advantage of this. So what you're talking about now, it's only among a very small percentage of the society.
I must admit, I cannot. I agree with everything. I agree with all.
But we can see it in Israel right now. Basically, every morning we get up and we need to say, okay, I'm doing this, I have to do this, I need to do that, but if I do this, they'll do this. If I do this, they'll punish me like this. So most people disappear.
Too complicated.
It has to take place. And I think that the definition of democracy is slightly moved to other directions that people don't really are correct about it. And I think that the people that rule now in Israel get confused because they think that they are the law and they don't behave according to the law. You can play with this as you like, but meantime, they got the power to change the whole thing. So it's very mixed and very complicated.
It has to take place, sure. I'm sure it's a part of my personality. I see a connection between my need to tell the world what is Yedi'at Haaretz, which is a term that does not exist anywhere else out of
the land. The love of the land.
It's like knowledge of the land, love of the land, which was also leading me to do the issues on Venice and Tokyo and Budapest, because it's seeing the world in a certain way, which is very Israeli. But I think I'm not going to argue with you because the facts are the facts, and I don't have any argument with very troubling facts very, very troubling. And I just spoke to a friend of mine this morning and I said, how can I, on one hand, be aware and on the other hand, not succumb to a very, how do you say that, a very destructive way of thinking that does not lead me anywhere. And I'm telling you, as an Israeli today, as a Zionist, as a Jewish, a proud Jewish person, I'm looking for a way. I don't have a very definite answers. One of my fears is from all those definite answers. Yes. I think that the understanding of the term democracy, there's no doubt that I think the Western world at large does not really comprehend what democracy is.
But the religious people don't look for answers. They need to learn to understand what they are.
Sentence. I don't agree. I cannot agree with the sentence. Our chairman, Zvulun Orlev, who was the Minister of Welfare,
Bless him,
who fought and got a medal for his fighting in Yom Kippur. And some of our people who were from religious kibbutzim, and they are religious.
I'm talking about the mess of the religious. It's against religion.
No, it's
you
not.
Don't ask questions. You look at the Bible, you have to understand what's written there.
The basics of Judaism is to ask questions.
Yeah, ask questions about the
basics
text.
of Judaism is to ask questions.
I don't agree with you.
You mix two things, guys. Because the Judaism teaches you to think and to question and to question. The Jewish people, the educators, or
to doubt.
Don't want you to doubt because they want you to follow. So you mix two different.
And by the way, these are processes that happen in Buddhism, in Christianity,
in every society.
And in a global world, we cannot expect that this tiny little place is just detached from influences that happen in Brazil, in Washington, in the capital, in Capitol Hill.
Most of the people, citizens of Israel, don't care. They don't know about Buddhism and philosophy of Buddhism.
No, but I'm saying the principle of someone who will take advantage and become your guru and make bad use of it, or a rabbi or a priest, it will happen all over. Human nature is a human nature. Now it's our choice to ask, Teva Adam, tov minehurav or ra minehurav. I think that everything sits on that. The nature of the human being. Is it better from its youth or worse? And that, I think that was the most important lesson that I had in the Hebrew University by Harkabi, Professor Yoshafat Harkabi. And because when you look at it, you see how from that very basic things, grow political ideas, different ideologies, etc., etc. I choose to think
good,
but not to leave it for someone else.
Right.
To think the Teva Adam Tov Minurav, and we have to work on it diligently.
She's what she does all the time. She's all the time saying it. I just because I didn't come from a religious family, although my father came from a very religious. But there is something when I encounter them, I can feel that they go and they take the Bible or the Torah or Mishnah, whatever. They're trying to ask questions about what this line means, what this sentence means.
But everyone can take every sentence to a different direction. Yeah. I'll give you another little story. I was working with a contemporary dance company, which was defined and looks at itself and its identity is very, very liberal, very humane, very considerate. Okay. And I'm working now with this religious and that everything that goes with it. And I see the liberalism that I see, the human values that I see encounter on a daily basis. I think that my dance company has quite a lot to learn. And I've put myself in terms of the definitions where the dance company is, okay? Because as I said to my boss when we started working, I said, listen, probably we're going to get a divorce when Mashiach will come, because probably my Mashiach looks different than your Mashiach. Right. But from there,
Dita, it makes sense.
Try to do the right thing.
Dita, it makes sense, and I'll tell you why. When you join a dance company or whatever company that creates art or performances, the spirit of the piece express liberalism, open-minded, but the demand of the dancers and the rules of the group are very tight. And it's very hard to get in and it's very hard to be. And you have one ruler and you have to follow. So it's very much like when you talk about your people now, basically only because they allow to be who you are. It's exactly the opposite. And allowed.
First of all, you're right. You're right.
It's like,
but I was talking about something else. I was talking about derech eretz, simple derech eretz.
but it's all,
okay.
it's
Respect
all,
the other.
but it's
But
all in the
because when
same.
you say these religious people, my experience is that they see me. They give me. When I say me, it's everybody.
All of us.
The space, the respect.
But that's exactly
the
the
value.
thing, because the other one, they want you to see them. And here they see.
And I guess my, okay.
It's
I'm
the
not,
opposite.
I'm not,
But I
I'm
want
not-
to
I'm
ask
trying
you
not to
something
judge.
else.
Yes.
I want to ask you, because everybody's using it everywhere, the word proud. Why does anybody need the word proud when you say, I'm a proud Jew, I'm a proud parent, I'm a
Because
proud...
you need to you need to have an identity.
I think it's a good
This
question.
is just a language. This is just the way to express
It's
the
not
need.
just a language.
No, I don't. I
not
see
just a
words
Yeah,
as
because it's bring you above other people.
It's a word that is
No,
being
no.
used too cheaply and too easily.
First of all,
without even
I
thinking about
see what
it.
you're saying. I see what you're saying. I think.
Goes to show my
First of all, before I said it, I had a shnia of thinking, am I going to use it? And
Am I
I
proud?
did use it.
Am I
yeah.
You
proud?
said it.
Okay, now that's a different question. I was asking myself, am I going to say I am proud? And I decided to go with it. But yes, am I questioning myself? Am I proud on a daily basis? I have questions, rough questions, and sometimes I am not just not proud. There are when the guy in Samaria burnt the Palestinian, not just that I felt that was a limit. That was something that was crossed, that touched my identity, that shook my identity in a very strong and frightening
Demolishes
way.
pride on the spot.
But listen, that was a minority. It was just few people. I mean,
yes, but
now it's not. Now a lot of now for me, what I'm shaken by that I have the feeling that too many people accept those ideas of the extreme right.
And that's where I go to education, because I think that these potentials for another hilltop youth, which is violent, does not see the other. But I think the only way is that daily educating. Educating is really penetrating into your mind and allowing you to think, allowing you to connect the things, to choose your values and to be okay with it. And I think that what we see today is the result of neglection of education in Israel for 30, 40 years. I think that is what we see.
Also misunderstanding. We were talking.
I think it's a lack of education. Look, first of all, look very, very obviously when you look at the groups that don't get the general education. And then the second one is simply, when they fired Adam Verte in Tivon, who was the teacher, the Ezrachut teacher, civil laws.
Wait, no. If you mention it, you have to explain the case.
Okay, Adam Verte is a high school teacher in Tivon who taught Ezrachut. Ezrachut is the civil laws. And he was fired. I don't remember exactly what was going on, but he sort of crossed the lines.
One of the students accused him for favor the Palestinians. And
okay, and now as I come from Tivon, which if we use the word proud, it's one of the things I'm most proud of because of the community values, because of the education, because of the connection to the land on one hand, but the connection to human values that I value. Okay, and I see it from the age of 1-year-old to the age of 100-year-old, and how the community operates there and who comes out of it. And I say I'm very, very proud. Do I think that there's no danger that even there can be a deterioration? I see a danger. I see it. I see it all over. And what do I have to do? Do I give up and just, close my eyes and my ears and keep blaming? No, I have to look. And I really believe that the tool of education, even if you go back to the dance company, one of the things that I think was the most, Tzili, you know it, the most valuable, critical tool that Israeli society uses, fortunately enough, still, is a special dance created and being shown all over for kids. Yeah. And when you see what art, which I think is a very, very crucial and important part of education.
Very powerful tool.
It's a very powerful tool for a person, for a human being who's an Israeli like me. I want a thinking person. I want an empathic person. I want someone who is not too afraid to look at the other. My brother, who's on the autistic spectrum, probably that was my school. My biggest school was to be in a community with people with special needs, adults, not kids.
Yes.
Adults with special needs who taught me how I have no idea really what it is over there with the other. And we use it too quickly, the other. Let's consider the other. Let's listen to the other. Let me tell you, it's not easy.
No. Dita, how you're getting sponsored, by whom?
The Timora, when it was started, the visionary person was created kibbutz Masrot Yitzchak, and he was working with Rabin at the time, and he told Ariel, the young man I told you about, the CEO, he told him, listen, in the first years, it will be very tough on you, but you have to go to the government. You have to rely on the government, because otherwise you will be running behind your tail all the time to get funding for very basic things or ongoing processes. And that's what they did. They did it even for too long because they have not developed at all the language of philanthropy, for example. So what they do have is the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Welfare, local authorities who come and ask them to help with the problems they have. And now that is why I joined. Now they are developing the language, the approach to the arm of philanthropy, so that it can contribute more. So and it's very tough, but it's fascinating to see those issues we talked about, the perception and reality.
Yeah.
Perception and reality.
Yeah.
Dita, we have to run.
It was very enlightening for me, I don't know for you, but for me, you just sent me home with a lot of questions.
Dita, good luck.
Well,
keep doing your good job.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, and see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.